Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakanu Afuraitkaitnut, Ineye AKANFO NANASOM da Medinde Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan. Akwamuman Amaruka Atifi Odwirafo. That means greetings to all Afurakani Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning African Black people. Today is AKANFO NANASOM Day, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion Day. My name is Odwirafo Kwesi Nehem Ptah Akhan, Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yet I say we thank you once again for tuning in to the show. We're going to place some links in the chat room regarding the information that we will be examining tonight, a couple of our publications. The first link is the Ptah SASETEM. We're going to place a direct link to the Ptah SASETEM publication. And we also have the MMARA, Divine Law and Divine Hate. In fact, what we'll do is we'll post the link to the publications page on our website. On that page, you'll see all 16 of our books. We have 16 books we have published. The ebook versions of all of our books are free downloads from the website. And then we also have the soft cover versions available. So when you go to that link, you'll see, and hold on one second, it looks like we're having a little issue with the chat room and everything, so let's reboot that right quick. What you'll see is you'll see the entire, you'll see all 16 books, and then you'll see the links to the soft cover versions on that page. So we'll try to open up the chat room one more time. I have to reboot that. Okay, it looks like it's opening up now. If you are on the phone line and you have a question or a comment, just hit the number 1 so that we can see that your hand is raised. If you're in the chat room, you must log in as a user in the chat room in order to interact in the chat room. If you don't have a username, you can sign up for one quickly in Blog Talk and you'll be able to tune in. So we're going to put the links in the chat room right here. Ptah SASETEM and MMARA. So those are the 2 major texts we'll be talking about tonight. And for individuals who are new to the broadcast, we have 3 broadcasts on a weekly basis. On Mondays, Joda, 4th, Monday night, tonight, AKANFO NANASOM, Ancient Authentic Akhan Ancestral Religion. On Binada or Abinada, Tuesday nights, we have Ojira, which means purification, where we deal with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion in general, dealing with how it's specific applications to every aspect of life with regard to our ancestral religious practices, and a purification. Jira means purification, so a purification of the understanding of our cosmology, of our philosophy, of our approach to life as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, wherever we are in the world. We have carried our ancestral religious practices with us in our blood circles, intergenerationally and transcarnationally, meaning through successive lives, through Bebra, which is the Akhan term for reincarnation. We reincarnate or we are reborn through our blood circle. So every child that's born is a returning ancestor or ancestress, and we carry that ancestral culture with us as ancestresses and ancestors. When we enter into the womb, we carry our culture with us and bring it into the world with us. So wherever we have migrated in the world or were forced to migrate into the world, including into the Western Hemisphere during the Mbusuo Kesie, the Great Perversity, the Enslavement era, still carried our ancestral religious practices with us in our prane moja, our soul and blood. And therefore, we were able to reestablish those ancestral religious practices because, of course, Okraa, our soul, a divine consciousness. We have a Ba and Bayat, a divine living energy that's connected to the forces in nature. So therefore, we have the capacity to be possessed by and communicate with the abosom, the forces in nature, wherever we exist in the world, as well as our Nananom Mpanyinfo, our spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors. So this is how we're able to carry our culture intergenerationally and transcarnationally wherever we have gone into the world. So we deal with that on Tuesdays, Benada, Abinada, with Ojira. On Wednesdays, we have Egwa, Marketplace, and we deal with Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut businesses, organizations, and institutions. And we highlight various businesses, organizations, and institutions, have individuals come on and talk about their services and products and so forth, how they're serving the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut community in a positive capacity, and how their ancestral religious values inform their service to us as a community. In the midst of this, and in that vein, we have established our Okra economic development model. It's a model of economic development rooted in our ancestral religious philosophy and culture. We published that model, and we'll put the link in the chat room. You can go to the Okra economic development page. You can download that model. Of course, it's a free download. You can see the 4-part series we did on Blog Talk, showing, dissecting the model and then showing how it's applicable to every aspect of our lives. And then you can see the list of businesses, organizations, and institutions. We are targeting, through our Okra economic development model, one Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut business, organization, or institution per week for 52 weeks for capital infusion. Our strategy is to starve the beast and feed the pride. So therefore, we make an assessment on a weekly basis to determine what funds we would have potentially wasted for the whites in our offspring, and we starve the beast and feed the pride. We reallocate those funds away from that white beast and direct them to the business, organization, or institution of the week. And of course, if we have 1,000 or 2,000 people reallocating, there's $10 or $20 and so forth directly from the whites and their offspring's businesses that we would have wasted directly to the business of the week, then these businesses would receive an infusion of capital from the community in thousands of dollars that will allow them to expand their business, of course, keep their business open and expand their business, their products, their services to us, serve us at a greater capacity, higher within our community, and perpetuate economic development. So we are in week number 17, as a matter of fact. So when you look at the list, you'll see the various lists or the various businesses, organizations, and institutions we have been supporting as a community. So tangibly, we will have supported over the course of 52 weeks at least 52 Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, African Black businesses, organizations, or institutions. So we're not just talking about by Black or supporting Black. We are tangibly targeting businesses, organizations, and institutions on a weekly basis as a community. Please share that information. The more people who participate, that simply means the more Black businesses, organizations, and institutions will be supported. And that means we will receive more services, products, and so forth from them. They will be able to serve us at a greater capacity, and we're starving that white beast at the same time. If we don't do that, by default, we are supporting our absolute enemies, the whites and their offspring. So, and that list is growing. It's an ever-growing list, and we'll be adding more businesses on a regular basis. So keep checking that page. And then we also have the Okra Economic Development page on Facebook as well, which links to our website page also. Okay, so for the information for tonight, AKANFO NANASOM, which means ancient, authentic, Akhan ancestral religion. Nanasom is our term that we use for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion in general. Of course, there are various expressions of Nanasom, various expressions of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut ancestral religion, African ancestral religion, or African traditional religion, or African ancestral spirituality, and so forth. Of course, religion and spirituality are the same term and are identical in real practice. It is only pseudo-fake religions that are not equal to spirituality, like Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Hebrewism and Hinduism and Taoism and pseudo-metaphysics and so forth. But we deal with Nanasom ancestral religion. There are various expressions. You have Yoruba Nanasom, you have AKANFO Nanasom, you have Ebe Nanasom, you have Fula Nanasom, you have Bakango Nanasom, various forms of ancestral religion. You have Hoodoo in North America, Juju in North America, which is the Yoruba tradition, Hoodoo, which is the Akhan tradition, brought to North America by AKANFO. Voodoo, of course, in North America, which is the Fon and Ebe tradition brought directly to North America during the enslavement era. Then, of course, you have Voodoo in Haiti, you have Lukumi in Cuba, you have Candomblé in South America, you have Obia in Jamaica, you have Winti in Suriname. So wherever we have gone into the world, we have brought Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral religion. In essence, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut ancestral religion, or Nanasom, is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. Those are the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion. That means through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to incorporate in order to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject or hate or repel in order to restore balance to our thoughts, intentions, and actions, and therefore restore ourselves to divine order. So the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance, the expansive and contractive poles of ancestral religion, or Nanasom. So we deal with the Akhan expression of Nanasom on Joda Monday nights, and then we deal with Nanasom ancestral religion in general on Finada or Abinada Tuesday night. We deal with the Akhan expression on Monday nights because, number one, we are Akhan, so we deal with our expression, but number two, because there's so much misinformation, on one hand, a lack of information in general about Akhan ancestral religion, but then the information that has been published typically is misinformation, and then the information that has been given by individuals either in the Western Hemisphere or from the continent typically is a mixture of regular information and total misinformation because of the infection of white culture. Islam, Christianity, just white culture in general. Once those infections set in on the continent over the past 100 to 200 years, many of the individuals on the continent who jump up and seek to, quote unquote, teach our people and ask people to bring them out or, and pay them to come out so they can do presentations and lectures and workshops and so forth to teach people and initiate people and so forth and adopt people foolishly into their families and all this kind of stuff. Those kind of people who jump up and do that typically are the individuals who have been indoctrinated by white culture. And that white infection is cloaked in the veneer of traditional culture, cloaked in the garb, cloaked in the language, cloaked in the ritual practices and ritual gestures and so forth. So the average person assumes that when they see an individual like that speaking the traditional language, eating traditional foods, wearing traditional clothes, engaged in what appears to be a traditional ritual, they assume that they must understand what they're doing, and they must be telling the truth. And typically, they're misinformed because they've been infected by white culture. So, of course, we want to put forward information that's accurate. This is why we talk about ancient, authentic Akhan ancestral religion, as well as the reality that, again, we have brought our institutions, therefore our culture, we brought it wherever we were migrating into the world or forced to migrate into the world. So authentic ancestral religion is born of your ancestral blood circle. It is your Nananom Mpanyinfo, your spiritually cultivated ancestresses and ancestors who were assigned to you by the Supreme Being, Nyame wa Nyame. They are the elders and eldresses and have the final say in the culture. And they are connected to you by blood, intergenerationally, transcarnationally. So we defer to them. If anybody teaches us anything or purports to teach us anything that does not comport with what our own direct blood ancestresses and ancestors, you reject what those fools say because they don't know what they're talking about. So it is within our blood circles that we carry our ancestral religion. And that goes not only back to West and Central and South Afuraikai, but it goes directly back to ancient Kanat and Kemet. When we talk about Kanat, a title of Nubia, meaning the first land, the foremost land, Khan, but Khan also means to count or to reckon. That same definition, those same definitions are in the Akhan language, of course. Khan means first and foremost. Khan means to calculate or reckon. We define ourselves as Akhan people because we're a component part of the first Khan people who exist in the world. And secondly, Khan, the first to Khan, calculate, reckon, count, and so forth, dealing with the foundation of civilization, measurement, calculation, and establishing norms and civilization and so forth. So those same definitions come from ancient Kanat Nubia. This is why the Akhan people worship the same deities from ancient Kanat Nubia and ancient Kemet, have the same language derived directly from the language of ancient Kanat and Kemet, engage in the same ritual practices, and everything else. And it's true of various other cultures on the continent. We are directly descendant, blood-wise, DNA-wise, spiritual, cultural, and so forth. Just like black people migrating from Mississippi to Chicago, we migrated from ancient Kanat, Nubia, to West, Central, South, Afuraikai, and then some of us were taken from there forcibly into the Western Hemisphere. We are the exact same people with the same culture. It's a direct line. So we're going to get into this. So the key for tonight, Suban Pa, which is sacred character, good character, or what we would say character, the nature of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. So we're going to talk about the nature of Suban. We've talked about the spiritual organs of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people. We did a multi-part series on that. And we've dealt with a multi-part series on ritual practices, dealing with ritual purity and so forth. What we want to deal with here is Suban, character, and Suban Pa. Pa typically means good or genuine or real, but it also means sacred, means divine. We talk about goodness. In fact, let's get into it right now. We're going to get into the Madanechi, divine law and divine hate. You can go to our publication. We put the link in the chat room. And we're going to get to we're going to get to part 5 in that section. When we're talking about Suban and talking about character and good character and so forth, and the nature of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, we must understand that to achieve Suban Pa, or sacred character or good character, that is our nature. That is wired within our Okra and Nkrabia, our divine function. It is part of who we are and what we are naturally ascending and crystallizing into to become honored elders and eldresses, or Nananom Mpanyinfo. To achieve perfection in the physical world is a natural course for every Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit individual. And only Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit individual. This notion that God is the only perfection and, people are born in sin and all that pure stupidity, that comes from the whites and their offspring. Now, of course, they will fashion that kind of foolish doctrine for 2 reasons. Number one, they don't want us to understand that we're naturally wired to crystallize into perfection as Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit human beings. Because if we recognize that, then we will not accept being controlled and dominated by an inferior people. That's number one. So, of course, they have to keep that out of our minds and make us believe that we are born in sin and we're only existing by the mercy of the terrible God and so forth, and we need to beg and pray for the God's grace and all this other nonsense so we won't burn in hell. That's pure stupidity. So that's number one. That's a way to control the people. Keep our eyes off of what's happening here. Make us fear the Supreme Being and just seek to get into quote-unquote heaven, or on the other side in the east to escape the cycle of reincarnation and deny our flesh and all this other nonsense. So that's one reason they do that, to control our minds so they can maintain control over society, control over resources. As long as we fear ourselves and think we're inferior and imperfect and so forth, then we will be focused on things that are self-destructive and totally distracted from exterminating our enemies. Number two, the other reason why they teach that the flesh is weak, the flesh is evil, the flesh is sinful, and in the West, whether it's Christianity and Islam and Judaism and all that nonsense, or in the East, the same whites and their offspring teaching that the flesh is evil, the world, all of human existence is suffering. The goal is to escape the cycle of reincarnation, all that stupidity coming from Buddhism and Hinduism and Jainism and everything else. The other reason they teach that nonsense, and those are just two different variations on the same thing, the inferiority of the physical body and the physical world and human experience and so forth. The reason they teach that, the second reason, beyond the political reason of trying to control our people to make us feel like we're inferior, the second reason is, in reality, it's quite natural for the whites and their offspring to put forth such a doctrine because their flesh is weak. Their melanin recessive flesh is quote-unquote sinful. It is perverse. It is inferior. And they are inferior spiritually. They incarnate as spirits of disorder without a Kra, without a Krawa, without a Ka, a soul, a divine consciousness. They don't have that. So yes, they're trying to escape the world because they're not in harmony with the world. The world is hostile to them because they are cancerous cells within the body of black humanity. So, of course, the entire world is hostile to them, so they want to escape the cycle of reincarnation. They want to escape their perverse, white, perverted flesh and their perverse morphology and their perverse phenotype and so forth. So that makes sense for an inferior people, the whites and their offspring, whether they're white Americans, white Hindus, white Arabs, white Asians, white pseudo-Native Americans who are just Asian invaders to this hemisphere when we were already here, white Hispanics, white Latinos, and so forth, the whites and their offspring, they incarnate as spirits of disorder. And this is why they seek to escape the physical flesh and the physical world. And of course, that's going to find its way into their pseudo-cosmology and their presentation of pseudo-spirituality. That has nothing to do with us. We have a Ka, a Kaet, a soul, a divine consciousness, meaning a deity that dwells within the head region. In ancient Kemet, it's called Ka, which is the soul, the divine consciousness. Kaet is the feminine form of that. It's called Okra in Akhan and Okraa, male and female. It is called Ori, Inu in the Yoruba tradition, Chi in the Igbo tradition, and the Se, Lido in the Vodun tradition. A divinity, an Obosom and Orisha of Vodou, one of the Ntorotu divinities, a deity that dwells in the head region, that is assigned to us by Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being, the Great Mother and the Great Father, Amenet and Amen, who direct one of these deities to go dwell with us, attach itself to our head region of our spirit body, and guide us throughout the course of our lives. And we first begin to experience the pull of that force in our head region as a pull throughout the course of our lives, pulling us towards thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in harmony with order, and repulsing us from thoughts, intentions, and actions and individuals that are disorder. As we develop spiritually, it gets beyond simply a strong pull or influence, and we can begin to communicate with that divinity and see that divinity and communicate with them directly, just like any other divinity. But we are possessed of that divinity in our head region. So therefore, we have divinity, the divine, dwelling within our head region. So how in the world could a black person, an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut person who has a Krawa, be quote-unquote born in sin? That is idiotic. That is pure stupidity. Why would a black person be seeking to escape the cycle of reincarnation? Asase our earth, fertile earth mother, she is our great earth mother. She is sacred and she is divine. There's nothing wrong with the world. The world is not evil. The world is not sinful. The world is not a shadow and all other nonsense. She is a divinity, a deity that's sacred. So when we operate in the world, the rivers, the oceans, the atmosphere, fire, thunder, lightning, and so forth, all of these things are vessels for forces in nature, divinity. Goddesses and gods, abosom, those divine forces, embodiments of divine order. So everything we see in the world that's natural, that's created with a capital C, divinely created, is sacred and divine. So we're not seeking to escape the world because we would be seeking to escape the divine. Moreover, we have been placed in the world by the Supreme Being to execute a divine function. The whites and offspring do not have a divine function. They're cancerous cells within the body. Cancerous cells don't have a function. They fell away from the function that they were given, and that's how they became disfigured. And that's why they became malfunctioning and seeking to destroy all the other cells. They no longer have a function. And this is why they're slated for extermination by the immune system, because they don't have a function any longer. And there's no repairing them, so they must be exterminated. So the whites and offspring are cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. They don't have a function. The only solution is extermination. So, of course, that weaves its way, ideas weave their way into their pseudo-cosmology. And, of course, it's designed to oppress and control the minds of our people. So, we have a sacred character that's naturally born within us and is natural for us to grow into and crystallize into perfection as Nananom Mpanyinfo, to achieve the highest level of society, the highest office in society in our Akhan culture is Nana, a gender-neutral term, one who is an elder or eldress who is spiritually cultivated or honored or venerable and so forth. But what that means is someone who lives in harmony in thought, intentions, and actions with their divine function, in alignment with their Okra or Okraa consistently. Once they achieve that level of functioning, then they are endowed by the Supreme Being with the capacity and the responsibility to assist us in our development as well, until we crystallize into Nana as well. So, first we want to look at what is good. Now, you look on page 50, in the MMARA Nechi, divine law, divine hate, and of course, divine law and divine hate. We'll just read that part. In Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut culture, this is page 50 of divine law and divine hate, order and good are the same concept. Nyamewa, Nyame and Sheshe, which means Nyamewa, which is the great mother, Nyame, was the great father. Together, Nyamewa and Nyame and Akhan is Amenet and Amen, the great mother and great father in ancient Kemet and Kanat. Amen becomes Nyame in Akhan, and Amenet or Amenat becomes Nyamewa in Akhan. So Nyamewa, Nyame in Sheshe is the arrangement or order in Sheshe of Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being. That is the divine order. Nyamewa, Nyame and Sheshe, divine order, is comprised of two complementary poles. The expansive pole is MMARA, which is law. The contractive pole is Chi, which is hate. The expansive law pole is comprised of the male and female abosom or divinities of law and balance, whom in ancient Kemet are called Ma'al and Ma'at. The male and female force of law and balance. Of course, we hear about Ma'at, but the male divinity that we invoke and communicate with and pour libation to and learn directly from, his name is Ma'al, and her name is Ma'at. Two different divinities who work together, that possess and communicate and so forth. And we did a broadcast on them, talk about them in detail. So, divine law or love, and remember, law and love is the same word and concept in our ancient languages, but the expansive pole of divine order is law, and that pole is governed by the male and female forces, Ma'a and Ma'at. In our Akhan culture, there's an Ebe, or divine wisdom teaching, ancestral wisdom teaching, proverb, popularly popularly rendered as Osansa se adye a nyame aye nina aye, which means the hawk says all that nyame did or created is good. And of course, we're talking about Inyamewa and Inyame. So this shows that the Akhan recognized that all, and we underline and bold that, all of what Inyame created and creates is in harmony with order, is good. It must be realized, however, that all things that exist in the world were or are not created by Inyame. The coca plant is a natural living entity in the world, and the Odwirafo, the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, took the coca plant and developed a perverse process by which the plant was transformed into crack cocaine. This new substance in the world would now exist. However, it was not created by Inyame, nor was it sanctioned by Inyame. It cannot therefore be classified as a creation with a capital C, divinely, of the Supreme Being. It did not come into being via divine fiat or sanction. Only those things, objects, deeds, and entities that are directly created by Inyame or inspired, sanctioned by Inyame can be classified as creation, divinely created with a capital C. All other things, objects, deeds, entities, innovations, ideas, etc., which do not carry this divine sanction, are not things that are created. They are things that have been made from an already existing material. This is whether that material is mental, emotional, or physical. This is a fundamental distinction and the fundamental reason why the whites and their offspring are not part of the created order. The whites and their offspring exist, but like the perverse product of the coca plant, crack cocaine, they did not come into being under the divine action nor sanction of Inyame. They were not created with a capital C. They came into being under the cloud of a self-inflicted spiritual and subsequent physiological degeneration. The loss of the Okraa, the soul, the divine consciousness, in less than 1,000th of a percentage of the population of Afurakanu, Afuraitkaitnut, thousands of years ago, prefigured the loss of abatum, melanin color, and morphological characteristics in that less than 1,000th of a percentage. It is these spirits of disorder, those who rejected Inyame and Sheshe divine order, who were drawn into northern Eurasia and became the group who began manifesting and perpetuating, reproducing internal and external extra albino and extra vitiligo characteristics, as well as a perverse morphology during the last ice age. This continues today. This is the origin of the whites and their offspring, Caucasians, and Asians. And like the origin of crack cocaine, this is a non-divine origin. Of course, the only people that were ever created by the Supreme Being is Afuraitkaitnut people, and from that point on, we began to reproduce. So, and we're going to get into that in a minute. We can also draw from the text of ancient Kemet to illustrate the truth of the principle that all that the Supreme Being created or creates is good. Good and order is the same concept. In the text delineating the four good deeds of the Creator, Ra, the Creator of the universe, says, I made the four winds so that every person might breathe in his or her time and place. I made every person like his or her fellow. I did not instruct them to do evil. It was their own hearts that caused them to disobey that which I instructed. That's from Coffin text, number 1130 from the 12th dynasty. And we must be clear that the persons created by Ra and the Ra'et are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only. So in this text, we see that the Creator of the universe states that he did not instruct anyone to do evil. Evil came from the hearts of those individuals who committed it. Evil exists, yet it is a manifestation of disobedience to the command of Ra, for Ra only commands that which is good, meaning orderly. Those two things we just wanted to point out to show that that which is good is that which is orderly. The entire Iriase, or the created world, is fashioned according to divine order. The expression of that order is Ma'a and Ma'at. Law is the expression of order. So law, the expression of order, is the expression of that which is good, because everything that is created comes into being via divine fiat, divine sanction, or divine inspiration, is orderly, meaning good. So when we talk about Suban Pa, Pa in the language of the Akhan means good, but it also means real. It means genuine. Genuine meaning divinely sanctioned, created, or inspired. Suban is the term for character. So let's talk about the etymology of the term Suban right quick, and then we're going to get into the Ptah SASETEM. Suban, the term for character, is comprised of two terms, Su and then Ban. Ban is like a term meaning a fence, which encloses things, or enclosure. And then you have Su. Now, Su has a couple of different meanings. Su means essence, like your essential essence as an individual, as a being. That's Su. And then you also have Su, which means water, like water. It means tears. Nsio means water. Asio means a river, or Asu means a river, depending on the dialect. So whether it's tears, Osu, or water, Nsio, or river, Asu, or Asu, that's water, but then Su also means essence, talking about the essence of a being, of an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut human being. What is the association with water and essence? Now, we went over some of this in our broadcast when we talked about the nature of the Sun, which is the spirit body. The Su is the essential nature or the essence of the individual, and then the Sum is the spirit body, your spirit. And we were talking about this in that broadcast, so we'll just go over that part. Put the relationship between Su, meaning your essential essence as an individual, which makes you different and distinct from other individuals, and Su, meaning water, also meaning tears, and so forth. When you look in the text of ancient Kemet, you'll find that Ra states that men and women came into being from the tears that fell from his eye. Talking about the right eye of Ra is the sun, the left eye of Ra is the moon. Of course, he says when he opens his eyes, the light shines. When he closes his eyes, then there's darkness. So men and women coming into being as drops, tears falling from the eye of Ra. You'll find that in the text of the book of the Cow of Heaven, the so-called destruction of mankind. That's in one text, then even further in the late period text, the Nessie Men Papyrus, Nessie Amsu Papyrus, the book of knowing the evolution of Ra and of overthrowing Apep, you will find the same thing, that the eye of Ra, from the tears of the eye of Ra, men and women, Afuraitkaitnut, men and women, come into being. So therefore, the teardrops falling from the quote-unquote eye of the sun become the essence of the human being, the Afuraitkaitnut human being. So Su meaning essence, and Su meaning tears, teardrops. Also rain, but the teardrops. This is all combined in the Akhan language dealing with the nature of a person. The Sum means the Su within the Sum. So this is talking about the spirit body. We talked about the root of the term Sum, the spirit body. It's called Sahu in ancient Kemet, the spirit body. But Sum means Su, which is the essence, and then Mu means whole or entire. So the whole entire Sum, the whole essence. When you look at a general term for Sum, it means a heap or something that can be, you rest something upon, to stand up a heap, or like a heap of stones, or a heap, or a large body of material. And then it's also something to stand up or to sit something upon. That's Sum. And then it's double, Sum. And that's the spirit. The spirit body is that which things stand upon or rest upon. Just like your physical body, all your organs rest upon or rest within that structure, that material structure that holds things together. Your spirit body is a structure, a spiritual structure, and all the spiritual organs rest within or rest upon that spirit body. So this is the nature of the Sunsum. It is a spiritual structure, an infrastructure that holds the spiritual organ, just like your physical body. So Sunsum is a spirit body, and within that spirit body is your essential nature, your essential character that's different from every other individual, your Su. So we want to get that basic definition down. So once you understand that you are different from everyone else, you are a Sunsum, a spirit operating through a Honam, a physical body. Just like a dog is a spirit that operates through the physical body, a fish is a spirit that animates its physical body, a leopard is a spirit that animates the body of the leopard. When you communicate with your dog, you're not communicating with the body of the dog, you're communicating with the living Sunsum, the spirit that is animating that dog's body. When the dog makes its transition, the spirit will separate from the physical body and the body disintegrates. And when you communicate with another Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut human being, you are a spirit operating through a physical body. You're communicating with their spirit, which is operating through their physical body. When the Sunsum or the spirit body separates through the transition of Owu or death, then the physical body goes and is buried, and then the Sunsum goes to interact with other Asunsum in the spirit realm, in the ancestral realm, and they are called Nsamanfo, ancestresses and ancestors. So you are a Sunsum, you are a spirit, and your spirit is different from everyone else's, because your character is different from everyone else's, because you have a specific function. You have an essential nature. The Su within your Susum is your essential nature. This is why the term for man and woman in ancient Kemet is spelled Sa, but also Sum in ancient Kemet, meaning a man or a woman, but it's talking about the essential nature of a human being. So we went into detail about that in our that section, that series where we dealt with the spiritual organs of the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut individuals. We talked about the Ka, Kayas, the Ba, the Bayas, the Ab, and Hati, the heart and lung complex. We talked about the Sahu. We talked about the Aku, Akut, and so forth, and all those spiritual organs, and showed how they still exist in the Akhan tradition under the same names with the same function. So, but Suban deals with character. And if you look at the structure of the term, it directly points to what we're dealing with. Su is the essential nature of the person, and bind means like a fence or a structure that encloses and protects. You have Suban, that which is wrapped around your Su. And what is wrapped around your Su? What encloses your essential nature? It is your expression. It is your character, your personality, and so forth, which is rooted in the function you were sent into the world to execute. So you have Su, your essential nature. And the bind is the expression, that which is wrapped around the Su, the fence around the Su, the Su bind, the character. What kind of character do you have? You can have Suban Pa, which is typically identified as good character, or Suban Bani. Bani means evil in the Akhan language, disordered. Bani means evil in the language of ancient Kemet. Of course, it's the same language. Suban Bani means somebody engaged in disorder, criminal behavior, has a negative, corrupt, disordered character. But Suban Pa means good character, but we deal with it because we recognize that Pa, yes, in English, you can translate it as good, but it has a different connotation. Pa means good. Pa means genuine. Pa means real. When we talk about genuine and real, what is genuine and real? That which is created and fashioned and sanctioned by Nyame wa Nyame. All that Nyame wa Nyame, as the Akhan Ebe proverb says, all that they created is good, is genuine, is real. If it's genuine or real, that means it came into being It means it came into being by divine fiat. If it is fake or not real or not genuine, then it didn't come into being by divine sanction. So when Pa means good, it also means real and genuine. We're talking about Suban Pa, or good, real, genuine, or sacred character. It is our nature to embrace and express sacred character, or Suban Pa, sacred character, divine character. That is our nature. So we're going to go into the Ptah SASETEM, and we're going to go to section number 3, and we're going to show the relationship between Madanechi, divine love and divine hate, and our divine function and its relationship to sacred character. So we have the capacity to manifest sacred character. We have the responsibility to manufacture and manifest sacred character. It is not in harmony with our essence, with our Su and our Sun Sum, to manifest Suban Bani, or evil character. It is not in our essence, our Su, or written into our nature, to engage in disorder or to make excuses for engaging in disordered behavior, thoughts, intentions, or actions. So when you see fools rationalizing self-destructive behavior, ignorant behavior, and so forth, intentions and actions, you recognize an individual who has embraced white culture, perverse culture, the culture of lust and malice. They're not engaged in divine order and embracing our ancestral culture, which is rooted and is an expression and impression of divine order, because our culture is rooted in us manifesting Suban Pa. And the way you manifest Suban Pa, or sacred character, is aligning with the divine function you have been given to execute in creation, your very purpose for living. So let's get into that whole piece. If you go to the Ptah SASETEM, which is one of our books, Ptah SASETEM is an educational curriculum for youth as well as adults. It's a 7-module curriculum designed to be implemented in 7 sessions, 40 minutes, whether it's youth, adults, individual groups, or whatever. We talk about, in fact, if you go to the beginning of the text, you'll see the 7 modules themselves. Okra, which means it's Afuraitkaitnut, Africa, the value of identity. So we deal with the value of identity and the nature and origin of the term Afuraitkaitnut, the origin of the term Africa, showing that we are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, children, Nut of Afura and Afuraiet. The creator and creatress, their titles Afuraiet when they're moving through matter, Ra when he's moving through matter, he's called Afuraitkaitnut when she's moving through matter, she's called Afuraiet, the first landmass to rise up above the surface of the water in the primordial times, the first landmass of earth. That raised land is called Ka and Kayet. When Okra moved through the first landmass, or the first raised land, the first Ka, that Ka became the Ka of Afura, or Afuraka, the land of the Creator. And the Ka'et of Afuraiet is the land of the Creatress. So, of course, we published our book, Afuraka, Afuraikai, the origin of the term Africa, proving conclusively the origin of the term in our ancient language and cosmology, proving that it has nothing to do with the whites and our spring at all. So in that module, we deal with Afura, Ra'et, Ka, Ka'et, Nut, Neonit, and so forth, showing the value of identity. The second module is Abatum, melanin, the value of physiology. So we talk about melanin. And it's the key to our biology, our physiology, and its value within us. Then the third module of the Ptah SASETEM curriculum is Madanechi, law and hate, the value of function as mission. So this is what we're going to get into tonight. So if you scroll down to page 16 in the Ptah SASETEM, on that page, Madanechi, Mara, which is Ma in ancient Kemet, Mara and Akhan, with the emphatic particle Ara, but it's Ma, Ara or Mara, is law, Nechi, and hate. Divine law and divine hate. Remember, law and love is the same word and concept in our ancient languages. Law and hate are the expansive and contractive poles of divine order. So we have a 7-part definition of how law and hate, Mara Nechi, defines our function and the value of function as mission. So there are 7 statements or Mbe, ancestral wisdom, proverbs, and so forth, teachings associated here. And when people study these 7 principles, they are associated with the Abosom of the 7 days of the week and carry that sanction, carry that energy. But it's a holistic set of 7 Mbe or proverbs that teach the value of function as mission. So the first one is the Okra. Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness, is the bearer of the Nkrabia, the divine function. The second proverb is the Nkrabia is your life focus. And the third one is Nkrabia determines what is lawful and what is hateful. So before we even go further, we're going to start with the first one. We teach youth as well as adults. The Okra, the Kaet, is the bearer of the Nkra and Nkrabia, your divine function. Talked about in the past, you're a Sum, you're a spirit animating a physical body. When you make your transition, your spirit leaves the physical body. And now you're a Sum, you're a spirit, and you connect with other Sum spirits in the ancestral realm, and you live in the ancestral community, similar to the dream state. As we say in Akhan, if you want to know what the after-death state is like, consider the Adai or the dream state. It's like you can communicate with your deceased relatives in the dream state and interact with them and have exchanges with them and so forth. The same kind of exchanges take place in the after-death state. When you're dreaming, your body is laying in a dark space, not moving, no sounds, no lights, and so forth. But your spirit is interacting with other luminous entities, communicating, having experiences, emotional experiences, exchanges, and so forth. In the after-death state, the physical body is laying in the grave and so forth, buried, darkness, no movement, but the spirit is engaging the other ancestral spirit. So when you make your transition, you live amongst the Nsamanfo, the ancestresses and ancestors. Generations later, it's time for you to reincarnate through Bebra, rebirth, be drawn back into the womb of one of your descendants. Before you are drawn into the womb, you are drawn to Inyame wa Inyame, and this is for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people only, of course. The Supreme Being assigns a divinity, a deity, an abosom to dwell with you in your head region. And that deity moves towards you and it installs itself in the head region of your spirit body. So just like you have a physical body and there's a smaller physical body in your head region that regulates all the functions of the various organs and systems in your physical body, which is your brain. In your spirit body, there's a spiritual force, a smaller spiritual force, a spirit body that takes up residence in the head region of your spirit body. Your spirit's brain is an entity. It's your Okra, your Okrawa, your Ka, your Kaet, your Odwirafo, and so forth. It is a divinity, a male divinity if you're male, a female divinity if you're female, and that deity is assigned to you and is directed by Inyame wa Inyame to guide you throughout the course of your life. And as we said earlier, that manifests as a pull within your head region. Encoded within that force, just like encoded within the right and left hemisphere of the brain, are the functions you have to execute in the world, just like the right and left hemisphere of the brain regulate these functions of all the organs in the body and so forth. Encoded within the spirit brain, the Krawa, is the function you are given to execute in creation. We are cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, so we are to execute a specific function within the body. So whatever function you are, if you're to be a healing cell within the body or a communicative cell like within the nervous system, then wired within your spirit's brain is that communicative function. And you will function as part of the divine nervous system within the body. If you're an immune system cell, you're naturally wired to execute immune system functions and seek out disorder in the world and destroy it, like immune system cells do within your body, then that is wired within your spirit's brain. Whatever function, if you're a healing cell, then you're wired to execute that function. So our function is our mission. Why are we sent into the world? When you have a function, that determines your value. When you understand your value, that informs your self-worth. And when you have self-worth, then your quote-unquote self-esteem or confidence is instantaneous. It manifests naturally. You don't have to teach any black person to love themselves, have high self-esteem, look in the mirror and teach them to respect themselves and love what they see and all that other nonsense. When you teach us, our people, exactly who we are and what our divine function given to us by the Supreme Being, the author and authoress of the entire universe, has given us a function, then that is our value, that manifests our self-worth, that informs our quote-unquote self-esteem, and our confidence naturally emanates from that. So we understand our value, we understand our function, and we understand our mission. It's wired within us. So when we say in this first ebe or proverb, the Okra, Okrawa, the soul, the divine consciousness, is the bearer of the Nkra or Nkrabia, which is the male and female aspects of the divine function. That's how we say it in the Akhan language. Instead of saying divine function, we'll say the Nkra and Nkrabia. Nkra means message. Nkrabia means the manner in which that message or function or mission is to be carried out. So you have a specific function to execute, but then there's a manner in which you must execute that function so that you can execute the function without creating disorder in yourself and the world in the process, as well as in your clan. So that's the Nkra and Nkrabia, the male and female aspects of your divine function. So your Okra, your soul, your divine consciousness, like the spirit's brain, is the bearer of your divine function. Then the second ebe that our people must learn, first they learn that they have a Okra and it carries their divine function. The second ebe they must understand is the Nkrabia, the divine function, is our life focus, the very reason we came into being. The Nkrabia, or the function or the life focus, your immune system cells, they have an Nkra and Nkrabia, a divine function, a life focus. They came into being to destroy disordered cells and destroy toxins and so forth to maintain the integrity of the body, to kill in order to maintain order. The world comes into being through law, the expression of order. The world is sustained through hate, divine hate, the impression of order, the destruction of this order so that the divine order can be maintained. Your immune and lymphatic systems are the divine hate vehicles within your physical body. They destroy disordered or cancerous cells in order to protect and maintain the perpetuity of the body, the functioning of the body, the perpetuity of its function. Through divine hate or divine rejection or divine repulsion, they destroy disorder so that the order can continue. That is the impression of order. And the expression of order is divine law. So this is what we're dealing with. So the immune system cells, they have a divine function. They have an Nkrabia. That's their life focus. The liver cells, they have an Nkra and Nkrabia. Whatever functions they are to operate within the liver, which supports the entire body, that is their life focus, their Nkra and Nkrabia. Heart cells support heart functions. That is their divine Nkra and Nkrabia, function, mission, life focus. Bone marrow cells support the skeletal system and so forth. That is their divine function. You have a divine function based on the deity that governs your krawa, your head, that determines what that function is. So the Nkra and Nkrabia is your life focus. So you have a life focus wired within you by the Supreme Being. It is divine. So you have a divine purpose. You have value in the world determined by your purpose. The third piece is the Nkra and Nkrabia determines what is lawful and what is hateful, what is in harmony with order and what should be rejected. The fact that there's a such thing as order, meaning a way things are to operate, that also means that there are ways that things should not operate. So your Nkrabia, your divine function, determines for you and for us as a collective what is lawful and what is hateful, what is in harmony with divine order and what is not. What is wired within your Kra, your divine function? How are you to operate in the world? Why are you here? And are you engaged in thoughts, intentions, and actions that are in alignment with your divine function? Or are your thoughts, intentions, and actions out of harmony with your divine function? If they are adjudged to be out of harmony with your divine function, you're engaged in self-destructive behavior. Now you manifest Suban or character that is Suban Bani, evil or disordered character, meaning out of alignment with order, as opposed to Suban Pa, which is good or genuine or real or sacred character, which means character that is in alignment with your divine function. Whether what you watch on television, what you listen to on the radio, how you communicate with one another, how you interact, or who you interact with, or what you interact with, is it in alignment with your divine function? Every moment of every day as adults, we make decisions based on our thoughts, intentions, and actions in harmony with divine order. If they are not, then you're engaged in Suban Bani. And it is not your purpose or your function to engage in any behavior that is out of harmony with divine order. We're not wired in that way. There's no such thing as, well, I'm just human, so this is why I'm engaging. That's nonsense. If you're engaged in self-destructive activity, then you're being a child. Children must be guided and taught what their function is until they grow into a level of responsibility where they begin to engage their Kra independently, ritually, and so forth, and begin to align their thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order on a consistent basis, and learning how to make harmonious decisions using that Inyan Sapo 7-stage decision-making process based on our ancestral culture that we talk about in the Ptah SASETEM, which is the module after this one. But there's no such thing as I'm just being human, that's why I'm acting the fool. This is why I'm engaged in lustful practices or malicious practices. This is why I'm engaged in drug use. This is why I'm engaged in profanity. This is why I'm engaged in all kinds of idiotic behavior, self-destructive behavior, not engaged in anything, not inspiriting discipline as we've talked about, not utilizing our soul or manifesting our soul responsibility. Soul meaning S-O-U-L. We have a soul responsibility to operate in harmony with order, meaning our Kra, our soul, should be guiding our thoughts, intentions, and actions. That's our soul responsibility, as well as our S-O-L-E, our soul responsibility. And we did a broadcast on that. We also talked about to in-spirit discipline. It's internalized or in-spirit discipline, so we align our thoughts, intentions, and actions with the force animates us, the divine living energy that animates us. We talked about sacred deliberation, making harmonious decisions rooted in a divinely ordered decision-making process. This is what adults do. This is part of our culture. This is written into our nature, written into our Su, and should be manifest through our Suban, our character. So just by virtue of the fact that there is a such thing as order, divine order, in Sheshe, Nyamewa Nyame and Sheshe, that also shows that any activity operating in contravention to that structure, that arrangement, is disorder and is not sanctioned by the Supreme Being. So when you engage in disorder, you're engaging in thoughts, intentions, and actions that are not sanctioned by the Supreme Being. So who are you to go outside of the created order, the order of the universe? You're nobody to do that. So therefore, there are forces in nature, immune system forces, that will shut down that kind of activity. And then you will suffer the effect of your action. And you can't, go against that and be angry about the effects that derive from the causes. And the causes are self-destructive behaviors that are rooted in disalignment from order, as opposed to behaviors that are ordered, that are rooted in you trying to align with your divine function. Okay. So that's the first three of those ebe. And then the fourth one, we get into intelligence, is the ability to harmonize every thought, intention, and action with order. So first they learn they actually have a Okraa, a soul of divine consciousness. Many of our people don't know that we have a divinity dwelling in our head region. Even if we say we have a soul, we just think that's something that makes us move around. We don't know the difference between the Ba or the Ba'et, which is the divine living energy that connects us to the divine living energy of the forces in nature. And then we have a Ka, that's the spirit. And then we have a Ka in Ka'et, or Okraa, Okrawa, a soul, a divine consciousness, that is the spirit's brain. The divine living energy operating through the blood, the circulatory system, the blood and so forth, the fire in the blood, that divine fire circulating and surging through us and animating us, that energy that connects us with the divine living energy of plant life, animal life, mineral life, other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, human life, and the forces in nature. That is the spirit, the Ba, the Ba'et, and then the soul is the Ka, which dwells and has its shrine in the head region, in the brain and so forth. The spirit and the soul, the Ba and the Ka, the Ba'et and the Ka'et. And then, of course, those spiritual organs, entities, as well as others, are all operating through the Sun, the spirit body. Just like your physical body contains the various organs, your spirit body contains the various spirit organs. So many of our people don't know this, what the difference between the Ba and the Ka, the Ba'et and the Ka'et, the spirit and the soul are. And then when they're given false definitions, they don't realize that the soul itself is a deity, an independent thinking, reasoning force in nature that is simply dwelling with you to guide you throughout your life. And you felt that pull in your head in one direction, and sometimes you have disobeyed that pull in your head and went in the other direction. And then when you had negative consequences because you became disaligned from the pull of your own Okraa, you recall and say, well, something told me in my head to do this, and I went in the other direction. Sometimes you have Nsamanfo ancestresses and ancestors who direct you to do certain things, and you call that your first mind, but typically it's your Okraa, your Krawa, that's really the first mind. The Nsamanfo, even when they guide you in certain directions, they're only guiding you in harmony with what your Okraa is directing you to do. And since they recognize what your Okraa is directing you to do, and they see that you are not paying attention, they step in and try to inform you about what your Okraa, your personal divinity, is leading you towards. So they just simply relay that information, reinforce that information. So you'll feel your Okraa pulling you in one direction to engage in certain behaviors or avoid certain behaviors, interactions, and so forth. If you align with it, there is harmony. If you are out of alignment with it, you cause problems for yourself. Just by virtue of the fact that you have that inclination to move in one direction and you have repulsion from engaging in other thoughts, intentions, and actions and interactions and so forth, that in and of itself is proof that certain things are acceptable and certain things are objectionable. Or else there will be no inclination. There will be no attractions and there will be no repulsion. Everything would simply be acceptable. But when you have certain things that are acceptable and you're drawn to naturally, and other things you are repelled from naturally, that's proof in and of itself that you have experienced within your own spirit and body that there is an order that exists, that Maranechi. So first people learn that they have a Okraa, which is a revelation to most of our people, to know what it actually is, that there is a divinity in the head region. That's number one. The second Ebe proverb says the Okraa, and we not only do they learn that they have an Okraa, but that divinity in their head region is the bearer of the Nkrabi, or the divine function. So they find out, number one, they actually have a soul, a divine consciousness, a deity dwelling within them. That's what's been pulling them all of their lives. And it is the bearer of their divine function. They actually have a divine function. So what is the divine function? The second piece answers that. The Nkrabi, the divine function, is your life focus. So now they recognize they have a life focus. They have a mission. They have a function. They have a value in creation, rooted in divine order. The third piece is the Nkrabi, the divine function, determines what is lawful and what is hateful. What is wired within your Okraa will lead you towards what is lawful and repel you from what is hateful. And that is a manifestation of divine order, what you're attracted to naturally and what you're repelled or repulsed by naturally. So the next piece that they learn is intelligence is the ability to harmonize every thought, intention, and action with order, divine order. When you're intelligent, when you manifest nyansa, or wisdom, or intelligence, that is your ability to ascribe the value of divine order to every thought, intention, and action, and harmonize every thought, every intention, every action with order. So you recognize what is orderly, which is seated within your crowd, your head, your divine consciousness, and then you measure every thought you have, every action, intention you have, and every action that you engage in. You measure that against the standard of divine order. Is it expressive of order? Is it in harmony with law, ma'an ma'at? Is it impressive of order? Is it in harmony with heru behudet and sechimar, benai abena, the male and female forces of divine hate or divine rejection of disorder? Is it in harmony with ma'an ma'at, the divine forces of law and balance, the expression of order? Every thought, every intention, and every action, we begin to teach our children this, of course, and then they must begin to engage that practice once they go through manhood, womanhood training. Now it's time for them to engage this practice ritually throughout the course of their lives forever. Their decision-making process must be rooted in a systematic method, which we have, the Nyansapo 7-stage decision-making process, where they align every thought, every intention, every action with divine order. They can measure it. They can set up that standard, recognize that standard of divine order, express through ma'an, ma'at, impress through haru, behudet, and sechima, and then they can quantify their thoughts, intentions, and actions, qualify them, and see if they're in harmony with order. If they are not, they don't engage. If they are, they do engage. That's intelligence, that's wisdom, that's maturity, that's adulthood. There are only two hoods that you can live in. You can live in adulthood, you can live in childhood. Which hood are you living in, as one of our brothers would say? So, the next piece is, it is the Nkrabia, that makes the Sunsum, the spirit body, obey the Okrawa. So now we get into a nuanced definition and recognition of the mechanics of why you're pulled, and why you have certain attractions, and why you have certain repulsion. Why is it? You learn that the Nkra and Nkrabia is your life focus. You have a divine function. Why is it that that's the case? Because it is the Nkra and Nkrabia, that which is wired within your spirit's brain, your divine function. It is that force, male and female force, that makes the Sunsum obey the Okra. Meaning your Sunsum, your spirit body, is naturally magnetically drawn. When your Okra is pulling you in one direction, you're naturally drawn in that direction. Unless you have been conditioned to reject what you should be doing and start going in the other direction. But if you don't follow the false conditioning brought on by this society, or brainwashed black people who embrace the foolishness of this society and embrace the values of this society, and so forth, if you don't follow that, then your natural inclination is to follow the strong pull of the Okra. Why do you have that strong pull? Because inside of the Kra is the Nkra and Nkrabia, the male and female aspect of your divine function. It is that, just like you have the brain, the right and left hemisphere, and within the right and left hemispheres of the brain are the neurons, and they're engaged in various forms of exchange that lead the person towards specific, or lead the various organs in the body towards their specific function, so they can function harmoniously. Wired within that fleshy matter of the right and left hemispheres of the brain are those synapses, those neurons. Wired within the spirit brain, the right and left hemispheres of the spirit brain, the Nkrabia and the Nkra, wired within that is your divine function. How you ought to operate, what is lawful, what is hateful, what is attractive, what is repulsive. Every thought, every intention, every action. And because that's wired within the Kra, then that's why your Sunsum is drawn to obey your Okra. So we're giving detailed information about the mechanics of how the Okra works here. That's what the Nsamafo is sharing with us. The next piece is Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African culture, is the expression of the divine acceptance, law or love of order, and the divine rejection, hate of disorder. the acceptance of order and the rejection of disorder. That's our amambre, in essence, our ancestral culture, our way. The term amambre in Akhan means Oman means the nation or the people. Bere means the way or the manner. Omambre means the way or manner of the people, of the nation. That is culture, our way of life. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut, or African ancestral culture, our way of life, is the divine acceptance, the love or law of order, and the divine rejection, the hate of disorder. So to love or to be in love or be in law with order, and to hate disorder, because law and love is the same word. So to be in love with an individual or entity is to be in law with the individual or entity. That means your thoughts, intentions, and actions are, and your interactions with that individual or entity is reflective of divine order. So it is the acceptance of order, meaning the law or love of order, and the rejection of disorder. If your thoughts, intentions, and actions are not an expression of the love of order and the hatred of disorder, then you're not engaged in Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut culture, and you're not manifesting your nature, your Su, and you're not expressing Suban character that is Pa, that is good, genuine, sacred. You're not manifesting sacred character, which is your inheritance, which is your quote-unquote destiny, your focus. You're engaged in Suban Bani, which is a rejection of disorder. Okay, and then we also, the last piece says, our lives are not ours. Our lives belong to Nyamewa, Nyame, the Supreme Being. So what are we saying, and what are the Nsamanfo, the ancestors and ancestors, are teaching us when they put forth that ebe, or that proverb, that wisdom teaching? Our lives are not ours. Our lives belong to Nyamewa, Nyame, Amen, Amen. The cells within your body serve you, the great being. So you're a great being. Then, of course, you have smaller beings within your being, which are your organs, smaller bodies within the great body, and they regulate order within the body. And then the organs give birth to even smaller bodies, the organelles, the cells, and they regulate those cells. And the cells are children of the organs. And when they serve their parent organ, they're serving the great being or the great body, you, at the same time. The cells do not exist in and of themselves. They don't just pop into being all of a sudden. They are part of you, the great body. So they don't live in and of themselves. They are part of you. Their lives don't belong to them in and of themselves. Their lives belong to you. They are part and parcel of you. In the same fashion, we are cells within the great divine body of Nyamewa Nyame. So our lives don't belong to us in and of ourselves. They belong to Nyamewa Nyame because we are cells within that great divine body. We don't exist outside of Nyamewa Nyame. We exist within Nyamewa Nyame. And when we live in harmony with order, we are guided by and aligned with the guidance of Nyamewa Nyame. Cancerous cells seek to circumvent the order of Nyamewa Nyame, and they go against directions. Then they become disfigured. Because of their discordant energy, it creates disfigurement in their structure. Now they no longer look like the other cells, and they no longer function as the other cells. They begin to malfunction. And then because they are disfigured and malfunctioning, they are slated for extermination. The same with the white star offspring, cancerous cells in the body of black humanity. So let me, so anybody has any questions or comments on the phone line, just hit the number 1. And if you're in the chat room, of course, you need to log in if you have a question or a comment in the chat room. Okay, so I see some comments in the chat room. I want to make sure we didn't miss any questions in the chat room, so we're just going to go through those real quick. So just give me a second. Okay, so one of the questions is, when we come back, is it always on the same day of the week? So, what the individual was talking about with regard to our Akhan culture, we have a 7-day week, of course, and the Akradin, the soul names that we have, like Kwesi and Akosuya and Kwame and Ama and Kwabena and Abena, that often are called Dadin or day names, but they're really Akradin or soul names, based on the abosom who govern the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies which govern the 7-day week. We are born on those days because they carry the energy of the abosom, and the abosom sends us through on their day as an indication of the fact that we were assigned to them pre-incarnation. So if we are born on Benada, the day of the abosom Benna, so-called planet Mars, which is a shrine, planetary shrine for the force in nature Benna, it's called Benna and Akhan and Heru Bedat in ancient Kemet, and Ogun in Yoruba tradition, Ogun Vodun. If we're born on Benada, his day, which is Tuesday in the Akhan tradition, that is an indication. The reason we came out on that day, he made sure we came out on that day because we were assigned to him pre-incarnation. So that's an indication from the abosom and the Samafo of who we were assigned to. So that's based on who we were assigned to. You'll be born on that day if that is your Okraa. If you make your transition, go to the ancestral realm and so forth, if you are assigned a different function in creation, then you'll be born on the day based on the divinity you are assigned to. But if you're not assigned to a different function in creation, and you're assigned to the same function in creation, the same divinity, then you will be born on that same day. So it's based on what is your function. What function did Inyamewa and Inyame seed within you? And based on that, that determines what deity will be assigned to you pre-incarnation in the spirit realm, and therefore, what day you will come into the world if you're Akhan. Of course, people who are not Akhan, they don't have the 7-day week system. They have a different means by which interact with the Supreme Being. They end up in the same place with regard to learning what their function is and so forth. They just have a different means of getting to that same place. But everybody has a means to find out what their function is, how to execute that function, and how to avoid disorder and overcome disorder behavior. Okay, so, and let me know if that answers the question. Okay, and then there's another question, why were Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit humans given a choice? Why aren't we just by instinct compelled to do what we should, the same as animals? Well, there's two things going on there. Number one, animals have instinct, and they're naturally compelled in certain directions, but we have instinct as well. That instinct that it's called is rooted in our Okraa. That natural compulsion that we have is rooted in our Okraa, that's the pull that we have in our head region. Animals have that instinct, but if animals are influenced negatively, then sometimes they will follow that negative influence. So when the White Nile Spring do experiments and they give animals, certain kinds of foods and things like that they normally wouldn't have, or give them drugs and so forth, animals will start craving those drugs and taking those drugs instead of eating food and doing what they normally do. So they end up making bad decisions based on negative influence. And in the same fashion, but most of the time, human beings are not influencing them negatively, so they're not being influenced, but they do have the capacity to be negatively influenced, meaning that even though they have instincts, it's not like animals just have instincts and they never make any mistakes, and they're always on point and so forth. If they're negatively influenced, they can be drawn and influenced to engage in self-destructive behavior. In the same fashion, we can be drawn and influenced to engage in self-destructive behavior, but we have a Okraa. And when we function in a harmonious fashion, it's not a major issue to align with the Okraa. When we're young, just like when a child is growing up and learning to walk and so forth, they have to learn to walk and strengthen themselves and so forth and engage and, fortify themselves and learn how to balance and everything else. But once they get to that point, it's not difficult anymore. Once we align with our Okraa, it's not difficult to engage in harmonious behavior and reject lustful behavior. The only time things become difficult is when we make the decision to align with disorder, and then we keep reconditioning ourselves and reinforcing that nonsense. This culture will make you believe that it's it's wired within you to engage in sin, and you're born in sin and all sorts of nonsense, and it's too hard to engage in ordered behavior, and nobody can manifest good character, or nobody can be perfect. That's the whites and their offspring. Once you get to a certain level of development, it's not difficult, for example, for you not to lie to your children, or not to lie to your parents, or not to lie to other individuals. In fact, when you begin to engage in that kind of perverse behavior, if you have a basic level of alignment, that's repulsive to you. You have a negative, emotional reaction when you begin to even engage in these thoughts and embrace intentions towards lying or disordered behavior. So you have a repulsion against that. So it's not a difficult thing. So when we engage our natural culture, just like animals, when they engage their natural functioning in the world, then it's not difficult for them to align themselves with order. When we embrace our ancestral culture, our amambre, it's not difficult for us to engage in harmonious behavior. Only time things become difficult is when we reject the culture, and then we begin to embrace the culture of the whites and offspring, which is rooted in lust, disorder, and so forth. Okay, let me see, make sure we didn't miss that other piece. Okay, so make sure we didn't miss anything. Okay, there's one question. Do you mean in the same sense of how we can raise mean dogs? So yeah, somebody can. Okay, so yes, in the same sense of somebody influencing their pit bull. Now, normally a pit bull, of course, they're regular dogs. Now, just them living and being domesticated, that's out of order just in general. Wearing leashes and all of that, that's not natural. Dogs are not born with leashes, just like any other animal. They are born to function in nature just like any other animal. So then we begin to negatively influence them. But then some people want to train them to fight so they can fight for money and everything else, and begin to negatively influence them. That's not part of their nature, but they're being influenced and pushed and prodded and so forth to engage in behavior that's outside of what they would normally be doing. So yes, it's the same process. Okay, so we have a couple calls on the phone line. EQLO reading on the phone line number 2026. You had a question or a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Brother Kwesi. Is there any circumstances where an ancestor can come right back? For example, like a woman died like in childbirth, and then the child, like growing up, like they would know like particular person, family members, and like certain events that happen during the mother's life. Is there any circumstances where like when the person died, that ancestor come right back, like in that circumstance, like a childbirth, so to speak?
Okay, so you're talking about immediately coming back.
Yeah.
There are circumstances where people come back. Typically, it's not the immediate, like if somebody had a child, typically it's. So now, are you talking about in the sense of if the woman has a child and the child is born, are you talking about the child being the spirit of the person, or are you just talking about somebody who just made that transition?
The child being the spirit of the person that had a child, like the spirit of the mother.
Okay, well, so just to make the distinction, if the mother was pregnant, is what you're saying, and then she died, but then, she gave birth to the child, but then she died? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, she died in childbirth. So while she giving birth to the child, when the child, she died instantly.
Okay. So in that case, what's happening is, first, when the woman gets pregnant, you have the woman, and then she gets pregnant with the spirit of either one of her ancestors who have entered her womb, or one of the ancestors or ancestresses of the father. So there's an ancestor or ancestress who is inside of her womb. So that's two different individuals, the woman herself and the ancestor. So when she gives birth, she's birthing that ancestor or ancestor. If she makes her transition, then those are two different entities. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
Now, there are instances as far as somebody returning quickly if the child died in childbirth. Now, the spirit of the child can come back quicker because that was an ancestor who had returned, but then they died. So they're once again, all of a sudden, they're an ancestor again. Or if somebody was aborted. If someone was aborted, they were an ancestor who had gotten into a womb and they were developing and they were going to be born. They were ready to be born and everything, but then they get killed before they're even born. So now their spirit separates from that fetus and they're back in the spirit realm once again. Now, if the woman gets pregnant, months later, she can bring that same spirit right back. But then some of our people get another abortion and kill that ancestor one more time. Then the third time they come back and then the child, the spirit comes back and they give birth. And then sometimes they wonder why the child is angry and discordant and disrespectful and things like that because of they got killed a couple of times. So, but as far as the spirit entering into the womb, that's two separate entities: the mother herself and the ancestor or ancestress who had entered the womb.
Okay, Merasa.
Okay, Merasa.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we're going to take another phone call. Michelle on the phone line, number 1129. You had a question or a comment?
Yes. What would you say to people who have a misguided idea of trying to bring people back into, I guess, orderly existence? Like, for example, let's say, like part of the ideology behind the Nation of Islam would suggest that Odwirafo were essentially created by us so that in some way that we have a responsibility to try to bring them back to order or civilize them in some sense. I remember seeing some material that suggested that.
Yes, I've seen that, and you'll see some of that you'll see different permutations of that idea floating around, different kinds of, so-called metaphysical material and so-called New Age spirituality and other stuff like the Nation of Islam. But so, of course, now cosmologically, of course, that's totally inaccurate. When they talk about, on one hand, they understand that these cancerous cells came about out of us, and of course, just looking in the physical body, 1 out of every 100,000 cells in your body at any given time becomes cancerous. So everybody has some cancerous cells in their body, but the reason why everybody's not dying of cancer, of course, is because your immune system constantly seeks those cells out and kills them and expels them from the body. So that's constantly going on. In the same fashion, the body of black humanity, you have 1 out of every 100,000 cells, so to speak, back thousands of years ago, who became cancerous, engaging in perverse behavior. And typically people who are engaging in perverse behavior, murder and rape and everything else, they get killed. We exterminate them in the society. Some of them escape from that killing. And typically when they escape from that killing, they would be separate themselves from society, exile themselves from society, or else they would be killed. And they're out, this is thousands of years ago before, of course, any other groups existed. And that even happens today. People engage in disorder. People in the village come and seek to kill them. Some of them get caught. Some of them escape and they run outside the village and they're out in the wilderness, but they're too scared to come back to the village because they're going to get killed. And it doesn't matter how long time passes. If they show up, they're dead. So they stay outside. But then you have some of them have children outside the village and they're out there growing up outside of, separated from the community. when the children grow up, they seek to come back to the community because they didn't do anything wrong. They don't like being isolated. Of course, thousands of years ago, there weren't the same kind of civilizations that there are now, or even later on when ancient Kemet and everything came up. So tens of thousands of years ago, when people isolate themselves and separate from a village, they're really isolated. The children and even grandchildren would come back and reincorporate themselves into the village. But the ones who were separate, they would die out there in the isolation, in the wilderness. Some of them were drawn up into northern Eurasia. Yes, they got caught up in the last ice age and they were trapped in that area, but the reason that they were forced out was because of their criminality. So they forced themselves out. When you engage in criminality, various forms of criminality, when we talk about the Okra, the soul, the divine consciousness. And by the way, when we did a broadcast on race and reincarnation and the nature of race and so forth, and we read from the text of ancient Kemet talking about when certain people, because they disobeyed Ra and so forth, were separated from the larger population. That whole story is in the book of the Cow of Heaven, the so-called destruction of mankind. But when we talk about the cross, the soul, the divine consciousness, when you engage in disorder, you make yourself repulsive to that divinity in your head region. And if you engage constantly in disorder, the Ka, the Kra, the Orderly Inu, as they call it in Europe, the Selido, the deity that dwells in the head region, will separate from you. If you persist in disorder, it will separate and return to Inyamewa Inyame. The Supreme Being directed that divinity to dwell in your head region to guide you throughout the course of your life. It is a spirit of order. It's an embodiment of divine order. If you engage in disorder deliberately and consistently, you make yourself repulsive to that spirit of divine order. It will separate and return to Inyamewa Inyame. Now you're without a soul. You're a spirit of disorder now. You're a corrupt spirit. And that spiritual disfigurement based on your own behavior will manifest as a physical disfigurement, which is melanin recessiveness and a corrupt morphology and everything else. So that's the origin of the whites and their offspring. Certain people separating themselves because of their own criminality, repelling their own crime, becoming spirits of disorder and reincarnating in that fashion. And yes, some of them get caught up in the ice age, but that's not the basis of their change. The basis is that spiritual disfigurement brought on by their own disorder. And once they make themselves cancerous cells and become corrupt in that fashion, and seek to consume and destroy the other cells, then the answer to the cancerous cells is the extermination of all the cancerous cells. It's never to heal the cancerous cells, it's to kill the cancerous cells, just like your body does. It doesn't seek to destroy them. They're beyond repair. Number one, we did not sit down and create them. That whole notion of Yakub, the big head scientists and genetic manipulation and all that nonsense, they're seeking to insert this notion that we are responsible for the whites and their offspring, therefore we cannot get rid of them. Even though they talk a lot of stuff about the white man is the devil and so forth and all that nonsense, their fake tradition comes from one of the whites and their offspring, a white homosexual Arab, Farah Muhammad, who they worship and have on the wall and pray to and everything else and think he's in a spaceship and all that nonsense. So it was created by one of the whites and their offspring to brainwash our people to follow that foolish doctrine, teaching us that we're not African, we're Asian. We went into the jungles of East Asia because of our, disobedience to Allah, and that's why our noses swole up and our lips swole up and our hair twisted up because of our disobedience. They teach that today, and it's idiotic, it's nonsense. It comes from one of the whites and their offspring enslaving our people to embrace whiteness, even though it's under the cloak of veneer of, black culture. So, because one of the whites and offspring created that foolish doctrine, woven into that doctrine is, well, you black people are responsible for the creation of us, so therefore you can't exterminate us. You must, give us a time to rule 6,000 years, so you can't do anything because there's nothing you can do about that, and all you can do is seek salvation and all this other nonsense, or hope to go up into a spaceship and everything else. But, that's where that comes from. But we didn't create them. They created themselves through their own disobedience. So the only solution is extermination.
All right.
So that So does that answer the question?
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay. So we appreciate the call. Okay. So got another call on the phone line. Okay, Michelle on the phone line. You had a question or a comment?
Michelle. I just want to say it touched on that issue with the whole fake science, the pseudoscience with the Nation of Islam, and I just wanted to give you props on that because they teach a lot of self-hatred as well as, pseudoscience about a lot of just the origins of white people, and it's nice to hear somebody else say that. So, thanks.
Okay, I appreciate it. May I say? Definitely.
All right.
Okay, what's up? Yeah, it became popularized, of course, in the in the early part of the previous century, all around the same time. The so-called Moorish Science Temple, Hebrew Moorish organizations, so-called Hebrew organizations, Nation of Islam, all of them founded by the whites and their offspring. They have their black proxies pushing this nonsense onto our people to further brainwash our people, which is, and it became a little bit popular. But most of our people never embraced that nonsense. The people who are focused and intelligent embrace their ancestral religious practices. It is through, for example, when we did our broadcast, Nanasom and the defeat of slavery, we talked about those who actually embrace ancestral religion are those who waged war against the whites and their offspring and brought the end to the slave system in North America as well as the Caribbean and South America. Also inspired by the forces in nature to exterminate our enemies because we were killing the whites and their offspring and freeing people from plantations and expanding and so forth. And we talked about the Gullah Wars where they waged war against the United States Army for 50 years and so forth, as well as Nat Turner, who was actually Akhan, Okunfo Yao, Nat Turner, Okunfo Kwabena, Denmark Vesey, who was Akhan as well, Harriet Tubman, Nana Araminta was Akhan as well, and there were many other people, Akhan and non-Akhan, waging war against the whites and their offspring, brought an end to enslavement. So those who embraced ancestral religion, we brought an end to enslavement, whether it was in Haiti, whether it was in Jamaica amongst the Maroons, in Suriname amongst the Maroons, in Brazil, in the Quilombos and so forth, as well as in North America. Those who embrace the foolish doctrines of the whites and offspring continuously become enslaved by the whites and offspring. And every time the whites and offspring put forward a foolish doctrine, they always seek to weave into that doctrine some means by which they can perpetuate themselves. And when you have foolish contradictions like the fool talking about the black man is God, then their God is really a white man, and they turn around and say he had to come like that in the sinful flesh so people would not be able to observe him and all this other nonsense. But at the same time, if the white man is God and the white woman is, or the white man is the devil and the white woman is the devil, then his mother was white, so then God was born through the womb of a devil. I mean, that's pure stupidity. Then they have to come up with silly rationalizations to rationalize how the God, Fard, was born through the womb of the devil, his white mother. So now you have to come up with, all kinds of ridiculous, contorted definitions to make this ridiculous pseudo-cosmology work. But the key is we are never to seek to repair the cancerous cells. We only seek to exterminate them. And some of that false doctrine is filtered even into the so-called Afrocentric community because many of the individuals, they'll study some true historical information showing that black people built civilization around the world. So that's the good part. They got that down. They can prove all around the world and, study that information that we established civilization. We were the first people. We laid the foundation for civilization. Everybody else came later. But when it comes to our spirituality, ancestral religion, they'll look at certain forms and images and so forth and commit in others, but then they don't understand the ancestral religion because they think it's disconnected from contemporary Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people around the world. So they seek to imitate form, imitate images that they see, dress up like the people of ancient Kemet and things like that, but then they fill in the spaces and the gaps with different forms of Hinduism and Buddhism and Hermeticism and Gnosticism and pseudo-spirituality, Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and Taoism, and all this nonsense, and then they try to cloak that foolishness with saying, well, these were all our sciences anyway, and the occult and so forth, so therefore we can practice them because it's really all our stuff, and it's really not. It's really a perverse corruption of less than 1% of our culture, and the less than 1% that they are seeking to imitate was corrupted by the whites and offspring as well. So what they're receiving in the occult and Hermeticism and everything else is not our culture. But because we're so brainwashed, we don't recognize the reality that the same people migrated from ancient Kemet, Kanat, went all across the continent. So the Yoruba, Akhan, Ebe, Igbo, Basa, Fula, and so forth were directly descendant of ancient Kanat, ancient Nubia, speak the same derivative languages, worship and are still possessed by the same divinities and are guided by them and still speak to them through divination, possession, communication, and so forth. And even when we were forced into the Western Hemisphere through hoodoo and juju and voodoo and so forth, we're still possessing these same divinities, still animated by them, still learning directly from them. So when you understand that, you recognize there's no break, there's no historical or true historical break from ancient Kanat and Kemet to contemporary times. We are the same people. We are the same ancestresses and ancestors who have returned, who once lived in ancient Kanat, then lived in central Afuraitkaitnut, then lived in the Western Hemisphere during enslavement, and now have returned once again. So we're the exact same people, connected with the exact same abosom. When we connect with these forces in nature, as we said earlier, they're the ones that animated us to wage war against the whites and offspring and forced them to accept the reality of abolition and emancipation. And since we were able, of course, to do that, then we are also have the capacity to do the same thing today and complete that revolutionary process that was started by our ancestresses and ancestors here in the Western Hemisphere. Okay. So we just want to go through the chat room, make sure we didn't miss anything else. Okay. Another question, can crossbred animals be considered as achiwadie and or not divinely sanctioned? It depends on what's going on. If an animal naturally connects with another animal based on, a natural inclination, then that's natural. If they don't, if they're forced to, that's no different than a black person copulating with one of the whites in their offspring. That copulation is not divinely sanctioned. So then you force one of your ancestors or ancestresses to come through, say, the womb of the black woman, but because she connected with one of these crackers, you force them, number one, to incarnate through a biracial body, a weaker body. Then you also force them to come through a polluted blood circle and have a pseudo-white father. It's not really their father. This is one of your ancestors or ancestresses who used to live in Kumasi a couple of hundred years ago, and you copulate with one of the whites in their offspring, and you force your ancestor to be born into your womb with the blood of one of the whites in their offspring. It is still the same Akhan ancestor who has returned, so he's not one of the whites in their offspring, but you force him to have a pseudo-white father. Is that really his father? Absolutely not. That's a criminal invader into your blood circle. He was never connected with that cracker before you met him, when he was still an ancestor in Kumasi, or an ancestor guiding you as you were growing up as a little girl and grew up into a woman. Last time he was on earth, he was an Akhan individual living in Kumasi in Ghana. And he's been guiding you as an ancestor. You're an Akhan great ancestor ever since, all your life. And he had no connection with the whites and offspring, but because you foolishly connected with the whites and offspring and copulated with one of them, now you force your great-great-great-grandfather to now be born into the world with a flimsy blood connection to a cracker. who he has no relationship to. So when he grows up and becomes focused and intelligent, he will cut his pseudo-white father off all communication forever because he knows that's not his real father. But that's not something that was sanctioned by the Supreme Being, even though it happened anyway. So now you create discordance. You create disorder because it wasn't divinely sanctioned. The ancestor is not a spirit of disorder who came through that womb, but you created a disordered situation. And it's the same thing with animals. You crossbreed them for no reason, that they're not naturally inclined to do, then you create a disordered situation for the animals themselves. Okay. Were the so-called Grimaldi some of the people who were driven out? So when they talk about the Grimaldi migrating up into southern Europe from Afuraitkaitnut, like 40,000 plus years ago, no, it's not just those people who are called the Grimaldi, which are Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people who migrated in that region. It's not all of them are the whites and their offspring. Our people migrated around the world. So we migrated up into southern Europe, the so-called Near East, southern Asia, into ancient North Central South America tens of thousands of years ago. So that was a natural movement. We were moving around. But a portion of those people who were engaged in disorder, they were forced out and drawn up into northern Eurasia. So it wasn't everybody who went up from southern Europe. Southern Europe was populated by our people tens of thousands of years ago before a small percentage were, caught up in that ice age. Okay, the next question, also questioning the same for GMO food. I am thinking that the energy of the food will be resonating at a frequency that would affect us at a cellular level, even though the food might look like those that were created naturally. So yes, it's a similar thing. Genetically modified food, it's not a natural creation. It exists, but it was not quote unquote created with a capital C. It's made, but it wasn't created. So anything that is not made or not created with a capital C, meaning divinely created or divinely sanctioned or inspired to be created, then it's not in harmony with order. So it's not going to have the same nutrient or nutritious impact upon us. And then people will find out later the negative effects of how it affects us with regard to our abatum. You're not going to see studies about how genetically modified foods affect melanin-dominant people because the whites and their offspring are not going to release that, even though they created the genetically modified foods specifically to destroy the melanin-dominant people, black people. Only people who will put that information out is our own people who, study that kind of information and put it out, whether it's through conventional means or naturopathic physicians or people who engage in spiritual ritual practice and direct people to recognize these foods are echiwade or taboo that we should not be. So they will be negative with regard to us physically, but also spiritually as well. They won't have the same energetic impact to our spirit bodies either, because they were not naturally created. And that's precisely, of course, why the whites and their offspring create such foods. It has nothing to do with crop levels, crop yields, has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with running out of food or famine or being concerned about population growth. All of that is absolute lies. The only concern that the whites and their offspring have about population growth is the fact that their population is shrinking and our population is growing. We're the fastest growing population in the world. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnut people, our birth rate has always been higher than all other groups on the planet, and that's the concern of the whites and their offspring. So when they create genetically modified foods, it's designed to destroy our bodies and to destroy the wombs of our women and the reproductive organs of our males as well. It can create disorder within us on a cellular level and an energetic level as well. Okay. So, all right, so there's only a few minutes left in the broadcast. So, I'll say for tuning in. We will be back on tomorrow. If you have a question or a comment, just send us an email. The books that we were reading from are 2 of our 16 books, the Ptah SASETEM, which is an educational curriculum. It can be used for youth as well as adults. So, as we said, we talk about identity, we talk about melanin, we talk about function as mission. As we talk about today, we have the Nyansapo 7-stage decision-making process rooted in the abosom, the 7 steps connected to the abosom that govern the 7 days of the week and all natural cycles. So it's a holistic decision-making process. 7 principal values of asedie, or responsibility. 7 principal values of obrabo, or ethical existence. And then we also deal with shebia tools that we need to establish our lives in a harmonious fashion. So that whole 7-stage process, 7-module curriculum, you can download that book, and then we have a 2-hour and 20-minute video where we show how to implement those 7 modules with whoever you're working with, whether it's adults or youth. And then the Modern Divine Law, Love and Divine Hate. You can download that book as well. Afuraitkaitnut, The Origin of the Term Africa, that book as well. So all of the books, we have 16 books that we have published. All the ebooks are free download, so you can download them immediately from the Nhoma page, the publications page on our website. All of the, we also have soft cover versions that we publish and print in-house on our own printers in color. They only range between $8 and $11. So if you would like the soft cover version, you can, order those as well. Any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. That is our permanent discount. So sometimes people will order, for example, the first 10 books of the 16, and because it's 30% off, it's $66 for 10 books. And then sometimes people will order the whole 16-book set. So any order of 10 books or more is automatically 30% off. But of course, you can order 1 or more. They range between $8 and $11. So again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in. Follow us on this channel. If you click the follow button, then every time we send out an email, a mass email, you'll get alerted to the new books that are coming out, because we have more books coming out very soon. Any new videos, broadcasts, and presentations that we are doing in different cities. Check out the FECU page on our website. You can establish a Nanasom study group, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit Ancestral Religion Study Group in your area with 1 or more people, whether it's in person or online. Your own independent group. And we have a curriculum starting with the Kukutuntum and the Uben Sheng and Wabojira and so forth. So look at the FECU page on our website for that. So when you go to Odwirafo.com, you'll see these different pages for the curriculum and everything else. So, Yedase for your support of our endeavors. Follow us on Twitter as Odwirafo, YouTube as Odwirafo, Instagram as Odwirafo, on Facebook, Kwesi, Akhan, or you can also type in Odwirafo or Afuraitkai to follow us. And we also have our own social network outside of Facebook, private, that we pay for. It's Afuraitkai-Afuraitkai.ning.com. You can join that. We post blogs and videos and discussions and everything else. You can interact with individuals who are engaged in the same studies and so forth here as well as around the world, our people, of course. So again, Yedase, we thank you for tuning in, and we appreciate the support. Yebeshi Abio, we will meet again. That's it.